Good evening, everyone. Over the last week or so, and well, more into the last couple of years, I've engaged people in the community as far as analyzing and discussing observations. Bobby Shafto is one of the ones. This is his work that we're taking a look at. We're not playing anything, we're just looking at specifically Mesa Lane. And instead of trying to gauge angles, the first thing we want to do, and I mean, it's my contention we don't have to gauge angles. We can first start off with a understanding of basic heights. Most people don't realize, or maybe really don't even think about the fact that this image is taken from a video of Pablo's dog 6.5 miles behind us here at Mesa Lane. And from that standpoint, we try to understand that all of the information, when it reaches the camera, has gone through whatever it has to do and is lineal into the camera. What would be important here is just kind of pointing out several things. A water line on a beach with probably a tidal range 4 or 5 feet. They can correct me, but it really doesn't matter. These are coarse numbers. We're calling this little nub a 50-foot elevation. I don't even need to contest that. It should be about that. We start coming up a cliffside to a tree with a 100-foot elevation, and then a 150-foot elevation at the house. All well and good. We really don't need to get crazy about this in any way, shape, or form. This is kind of a spin-off to several things, and one of them was basically a video that I started, and it was identify the model and explain the observation. And in this, of course, we have the same view of Mesa Lane that Pablo's dog has recorded for us, and we kind of get a better understanding that we are back well away from Mesa Lane. And we can take a look at the water, how the water flows out into the distance of what's behind, which is La Conchita, Muscle Shoals, heading down towards Ventura. Now, if we take at this point and, I guess come in a bit. Did that move for me? Okay. Let's move ahead to another slide. Actually, let's go back. The first observation is pretty flat. Or, as Bobby would contend, it is still convex with a globe radius of 8,500 feet. My argument was that in the distance, there is this band which I recognize to be something different, but really, let's not really get carried away with that. The video continued, and we ended up into, let's back up again. Notice the height of the water in the distance, just above the rocks. Visually, this is what we see. Doesn't take much more than common sense to realize some of the problems we're going to have here. So we move to the next slide. We know that the water is still lapping at the shoals of Mesa Lane, the beach here at the bottom, but we start to see some other problems. We have a white buoy right here, which we see visually from where you're at. Whether this runs out or not, it appears higher in this photograph than the previous. The previous, it was down low. It was down in here. If we accept this to be 50 foot and this to be 100 foot, this is coarsely 35 to 40 feet. This boy has a rising from perspective, whatever you want to call it. The water is appearing above it in the distance. I mean, we can argue some points later. That's all well and good. And when we get to the final that I put in front, the water line is above, notably above. Feet, inches, it doesn't matter. It's above 50 feet. We went from maybe 5 to 35 to, let's call it 55 in the distance. Now, right there, that says a ton about, what are you actually seeing? If we zoom all the way back to, a more distant span back, none of the water should be up in this range. Okay? Nothing should be in that range. There is no geometric, tidal, any explanation for the water being up in this range. So you'd have to stop for a second without trying to gauge angles with Mesa Lane. You can pretty much identify that there's something significantly wrong that needs to be addressed before you start any type of measurement. Because I've been doing this for several years. After someone takes this measurement and convinces you to ignore everything else, ignore the elephant standing in the room, they're going to walk you into a computer visualization program and try to justify it there. And if you're led into that visualization program where people stretch and do whatever they want to do to try to align a computer-generated view with their thought process, well, at the end of the day, kick yourself. Bury your head in the sand. Just go about whatever you want to do. Okay? The people who are trying to sell measure without understanding visual effects caused by refraction are either ignorant of these effects, they're willfully ignorant, or they're just plain deceptive. Now, I've been accused of putting the cart in front of the horse. The horse would be, let's measure this. Let's measure this and then move away from this. Let's dissuade any conversation about the obvious. Okay? Let's just decide about the horse. And I put an analogy. It doesn't matter if it's a horse, a donkey, or a jackass. The person on the cart, the person with the brain that's supposed to be getting people to places or getting the message to it, needs to take control at some point in time. You don't let the horse always lead the cart. I've been accused of putting the cart in front of the horse. Well, I guess I am. I'm the one who's supposed to be in control of the cart. I really don't like looking at the sphincter of a four-legged creature trying to measure if it's a horse, a donkey, or a mule. I'd like to understand what's going on with the information we need to figure out. Okay? So, across all of these responses that I've been responding to Bobby, I appreciate everybody's input into this. It's great, but I've, gone since, 2016 on this topic. And I've watched the same people bring the same nonsense to the same conversation. And just to get measure, to bring people into a visualization software package where they can stretch everything to their liking to say, go back to sleep, you really don't need to think about anything, is really not the path that I choose to take. I have been dedicating my last 4 years to establishing what refraction is. Refraction is the angular bending of light. You can look it up. That is how it's described. Angular bending of light. So when you venture into a program where someone tells you that they're going to compare refraction or compensate for refraction as a curved path of light over a curved surface. Convex surface, that's the globe. 7/6R. 6 units of Earth radius compared to 7 units of a curved path of light. Now, immediately, if you are the kind of person who just doesn't think, are going to look at a fishbowl of water with sugar in it and a laser moving through it. And some smug individual is going to point down at it and say, oh, curved path of light. Yeah, don't understand the chemistry of that water. Don't understand that water is in a process of transformation of a solution. You can't stir that water. Great effect, fun with the kids. But it's not equivalent to the air we breathe. You don't see the same smug individual sticking his head in the fish tank and carrying on a conversation. Because he can't. It's not air. Sugar is a chiral molecule. Maybe someone should understand what that means. A laser is not the same as the light that we are observing. It has more intensity. So how does an intense laser propagate through a solution that is in the process of dissolving, that is water and a chiral molecule? Maybe beyond where you want to go? The simple aspect is the next time someone puts a fishbowl of water and sugar in front of you and shines a laser through it, just tell them where to go. And that would be my advice. Now, I appreciate everybody who at this point has listened to my rant. And wait, I'm still not done. There are visual effects aside from refraction, the bending of light, in the natural environment. Across the distance between where light originates from, down here, right at the water's edge, light has to bounce off of the objects and come to us for us to observe. We don't reach out and do everything. We are observers. The camera has a sensor that senses what's coming in. We observe what comes to us. And if it comes to us through an environment that in the end produces stretching like we see here on this cliff face, as well as water that appears higher than it should, that is a form of refraction. Okay? And in the past, some individuals would call it atmospheric lensing. Yes, a lens creates refraction. The atmosphere then would act like a lens. In addition to that, camera lenses create refraction. It's what brings you in and out of a focal depth when you zoom. But that also causes issues. Unless you stay on the axial path, which is right down the barrel of the lenses, you have distortion outside of that. So when you take a look at an image, when someone zooms in, you have to realize that the camera itself is going to start producing refractive distortion. And this is something that photographers know. A photographer will take and leverage off of effects in order to create that perfect shot. Cinematic effect. Those who have ventured into hobby recordings, appreciate everybody that has goes out into the world and takes all this information that I am able to review without having to venture to the coast to do it myself. There's an individual who says that you don't understand it unless you go to the coast to do it yourself. No, actually I can observe it and understand it from Pablo's dog's work in more of the macro, Heath Carmody, mid-range, all the way down to the micro of Sky Free. I appreciate all of these individuals for the work they do. I appreciate other channels that, it would have been the plain truth. All of these people have gone out and recorded things that are a mirage. What is a mirage? A mirage, the definition is something to mire at. To mire at something is to wonder why the hell it looks like it looks. Great. You can look at something and you say, I understand something is above, superior, below, inferior, and call it a mirage because you don't know what it is. You're miring at something that appears to be above or appears to be below. When you get to the point to understand the light from the distance is moving towards you, you start understanding the mechanics of how it's bending to get to you, and then understand why it's representing itself like it is. This does not require exact measurement or gauging of angles. The first thing you have to do is understand something is significantly wrong. And once you establish that something is significantly wrong, before you measure it, try to figure it out. Try to come up with a hypothesis as to, what could be wrong. Research explanations. Everybody has explanations. I've read a bunch of them. Research it farther to see if it works within the laws that define how light moves. Line of sight. Everybody knows line of sight. That means line of sight. Light moves rectilinearly towards you. A straight line. And if it doesn't, it's because it reflects. You look in a mirror. You see a reflection. It is bouncing off something. Can it come straight back to you? It can be your side view mirror that shows you what's behind you. Or, lastly, refraction. Somewhere along the path, the light in the medium that it's traveling is going to hit another medium where the speed of the light changes. At that point, it bends a little bit at an angle. But all that information that continues has relevance to the line of sight preceding the bend to a new line of interpretation. Where you see where light came from, you could see light coming off the surface of the water that was headed to a higher elevation. And through refraction, it's directed now down back to the individual, Pablo's dog, back at Campus Point, parking lot 6, to produce this. This water's not here. Okay, not actually here. This is no longer true line of sight here. The light coming off of this has hit medium in between that has redirected it towards Pablo's dog at Campus Beach parking lot number 6. Below it, It has caused visual stretching. This is something, it's far too easy for me. I've been looking at this for far too long. Not exactly sure the best way to put this into something creative. But sometimes, the actual information clues in with the people who can appreciate something that makes sense without measuring the size of the four-legged creature's sphincter that's in front of you. Okay? Don't stay behind the horse. Start being the driver of the cart. Get to where you need to go as far as where you want to be in deciding what you think about the world you live on. Thank you.